All right, welcome back, everyone. I want to thank Jason Calhoun from the Center, as well as Dr. Gilbert Rogers from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, for facilitating our breakout sessions today. Now we're going to get ready to transition into our last general session, but before we do that, I wanted to share with you all a bit about the Center, what we've done, and our priorities for the coming year. What a year it has been. As of April 30th, I've mentioned this figure before, but we've had $17 million worth of victories reported in student loan forgiveness, most of that by way of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. But I must say that this number is a gross understatement because there are plenty of people that we have presented to and served, but have not had the ability to go back to them and get those figures or hear from them about those victories. So if you have benefited from the information or the resources, please do let us know so that we can update those figures, track our outcomes, and accurately quantify and explain our impact. I do want to give you all a bit of perspective on cost versus impact for the center. There have been some days when the amount of debt forgiven for just one borrower has exceeded our entire operating budget for the year. So, and this is not something that has just happened once. There are at least a dozen people that I can think of who have been relieved of debt that, again, is outsized. So we know that we're making a huge difference here. In terms of content development, I want to encourage you all to join us for office hours, which is our semi-monthly free student debt clinic, where we answer questions that have come in from members of our community about student loans. Just to give you some perspective, we are very small. Right now, I think we have 110 subscribers, but that's double what we had at this point last year. And on YouTube, we've amassed more than 8,000 views. And this is all with no ads, truly organic growth. And one of those people, I gave her a shout out in the breakout room, but Jacqueline from the city of Philadelphia actually came to us from office hours and has been a repeat attendee for the symposium and is really engaged. So we're going to continue to make that content, and we just encourage more people to join us, be a part of that. So that's a bit about what we've done in the realm of helping students and families. As for campus-based professionals, June 30th marked the end of the period for borrowers to benefit most greatly from one-time adjustments, including the IDR adjustment for student loans. Through our Maryland Telepublic Servant Initiative, also known as MD-TAPS, we've been able to work with employees at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Salisbury University, and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County to increase awareness and access to public service loan forgiveness. I want to thank the VP of Enrollment Management and Student Experience at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Latoya Jenkins, and her Financial Aid Director, Dana Livingston, as well as Andrea Sapola and Sharice Gibson at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and Mason White at Salisbury University. I also want to make sure to recognize the University of Maryland College Park, Howard Community College, and the University of Maryland, Baltimore for their continuous programming to support student financial wellness initiatives. Last thing I'll say about campus-based professionals is that 100% of our events lead to requests that cover people outside of the scope of our project areas. That's 100%. So every time we visit a school, whether that's a pre-K through 12 space or a college or university, every single time there is someone there who is asking for support for a spouse, a colleague, or their child. So the demand is really, really high. And we've been able to work with organizations such as the Prince George's County Sheriff's Office, the Maryland Higher Education Commission, and assisting educators from neighboring counties like Howard County, Anne Arundel County, as well as Montgomery County. The advocacy front is the third level that we cover through the center. I'm super excited to say that in January, we hosted our first ever policy roundtable on the campus of Morgan State University. And I'd like to thank Keisha Campbell, the university's registrar, for welcoming us there, along with our partners, the Cash Campaign of Maryland and the Student Borrower Protection Center. And in some exciting news out of Annapolis, House Bill 811, which we supported, passed. And that bill has created a financial well-being pilot program where 2 full-time financial well-being coaches will be at the campuses of the University of Maryland College Park and Morgan State University to serve students and meet their financial well-being needs. So we're really happy to have supported that bill and amazed that it was passed through session this first time. So congratulations to Delegate Sarah Wolek, who was the champion of this bill, and thanks to Governor Wes Moore for signing it into law. So that's a bit about the last year. Going forward, if you have not gotten this message already, I want to reiterate that demand for services exceeds the supply of both funding and our people power. As I mentioned before, 100% of our events lead to requests for services from individuals outside of the project funding areas. And while student loan help has been the entry point, we're often helping people with other concerns like the FAFSA, saving for higher education, and many of our borrowers are preparing their own children to go to college. We field requests to help with a host of personal financial issues. And so over the next year, we're going to be working to secure funding for general operations, to support service to student families, but also shoring up our network of resources so that we can refer out when necessary. The next thing I'd like to say is that we are expanding to deliver financial education to current students through a program called the CREST Academy. CREST is an acronym for the 6 pillars of collegiate financial wellness that we identified when we started the center. Those are being creditworthy, ready, resilient, empowered, successful, and thriving. The CREST Academy is an online financial education platform for current students, and it's been an idea since I started the center back in 2021. But I'm excited to share today that the CREST Academy has been funded. So I want to thank the Hackerman Foundation for their generous support, which will allow us to conduct a pilot of the CREST Academy at 2 institutions within the University System of Maryland. That's Towson University and Bowie State University during the 2024-25 academic year. This expansion marks a shift for us, as much of our content and services have been focused on student loan borrowers and more recently the FAFSA. But this has been a part of our vision from day one. That is to support informed decision-making at critical points in the higher education journey. And if we can get more people and help them make more informed decisions on the front end of higher education, then perhaps we won't have as many who are struggling in seeing us on the back end when it comes to repaying those student loans. Lastly, the time has truly flown by, but July of 2025 will mark our 5th virtual symposium. So this will be 5 years into this journey. And to mark the occasion, we are going to expand to include an in-person component. So we'll still keep this virtual part and it will remain free, but we want to see everybody in person, especially our campus-based professionals and community partners from in the state of Maryland. We're looking for host committee members as well as sponsors, so stay tuned. We'll be sure to keep you up to date. And as always, thank you so much for your support along the way. And we're just really looking forward to deepening partnerships and continuing to advance collegiate financial wellness. So in the spirit of partnership, for our final session, we are circling back to the Comptroller's office to learn more about new coordinated efforts to bring stakeholders together and improve the financial capability of Marylanders. So joining us today is Nicole Johnson. Nicole is a regional public engagement officer in the Office of Public Engagement and Communications. She joined the Comptroller's office in 2023 and serves as a liaison between the Comptroller's office and community and business organizations with an agency statewide focus on financial literacy. Prior to joining the Office of the Comptroller, Nicole worked in the nonprofit affordable housing sector, managing community partnerships, resident engagement, and economic development initiatives in the Washington, D.C. area, and previously with the Maryland Department of Human Services, providing essential services and resources to residents in Baltimore City. Nicole holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Morgan State University and a master's degree in human resource development from Bowie State University. I didn't read degrees from everyone else, but I just had to read those because Nicole is all things Maryland. Big shout out to the Bears and the Bulldogs, and welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be with you all today. Before I begin, I definitely want to thank Dr. Tisa for extending this invitation and opportunity to connect with you all and share some insight regarding my public engagement work with the Comptroller's Office and also highlight some strategic approaches toward community engagement. So as mentioned, I am Nicole Johnson and a proud graduate of 2 Maryland universities. Thanks for shouting them out. I am a regional public engagement officer with the Office of the Comptroller. So I am very thrilled to connect with you all during this final session, just to share a little bit more about my work with the office and community engagement. So the Comptroller's Office launched a public engagement team, which is a strategic division within the agency that focuses on guiding proactive external outreach and engagement efforts. So I have the pleasure of serving alongside an incredible team that is focused on establishing strategic partnerships with key business and community leaders, boards and associations, other organizations, to ensure that the information and expertise of our agency reaches across the state. And in addition to my work with regional public engagement, I also spearhead, as mentioned, outreach in Anne Arundel, Prince George's, and Montgomery County. So many of you I've probably already collaborated with in some aspect, which is exciting. And I also oversee statewide outreach and engagement regarding financial literacy. So our work encompasses many aspects of engagement by way of building relationships, educating taxpayers regarding the function, the services, and resources of our office. And we do that best with the partnership and support and collaboration with community stakeholders. So in speaking today a little bit about community engagement, let's talk about community engagement and why that matters. So I would dare to say that we can continue to measure our collective impact in the financial education space by how intentional we are with our community engagement. And I was so inspired by the breakout session talking about the peer-to-peer groups that I just left out of. And that spoke deeply to me because I think that the intentionality and the impact of our work really can be measured by the intentional focus we put in how we engage our audiences. So while we invest, our office, we invest strategic focus and intentional effort toward improving taxpayer knowledge and access to resources and services. We talk a lot about things such as tax credits and pertinent information related to tax filing in the Comptroller's office. But we're often, and I'm often asked about other popular topics related to personal finance. And that's where the opportunity for partnership and engagement is so helpful because it allows us to expand beyond the capacity of our office. I'm not a financial coach or expert, but there are so many stakeholders in community that I know that many of us are partnered with that are doing this incredible work to engage with folks. And so that is part of my role, is to make sure that we are identifying those stakeholders so that we can expand our capacity to reach Marylanders and folks that have inquiries about financial wellness. So I really feel like it's about strategy. One, obviously knowing your audience and building really meaningful, intentional connections. One of the things I often share is how, while there are often many resources to tap into, it's so equally important to employ strategies that create opportunities and reduce barriers for sharing that information. You all have talked about so much information today in this space, and I often hear from community members that talk about, or have conversations about finances and student loan debt and overall financial wellness, that those topics can be very challenging and overwhelming often, and I understand and share that sentiment. Going to college and not having the knowledge to prepare for my financial future. I mean, some of my first conversations about loans and borrowing were with my campus financial aid advisors. And so it's critical to be able to have those trusted folks and spaces to where they can educate, people that are coming into that environment about what their options are. So the work that you do in educating students and their families regarding those options and the resources and support and that understanding is just a huge part of the community engagement and outreach piece. In addition to the role of being a regional public engagement officer, we're out in community. We take that opportunity to be in large scale events, so fairs and festivals and other kinds of public scaling events that we have the opportunity to go to. Our mission is really to ensure that we are sharing the resources of our office, but seeking out opportunities to engage and collaborate with other stakeholders that provide additional resources. One of the things that I also, in a segue to that, I want to talk a little bit about are advisory councils, and which I think is a huge, is a very strategic way to further your engagement and outreach as it relates to making sure that we are connecting folks with resources. So the Comptroller of Maryland recently convened several work groups and advisory councils, actually 10, to provide opportunities for key stakeholders and policy experts and community partners to advise our agency on our strategic goals, on policy direction and new initiatives, while also helping to kind of shape our internal and external engagement strategy. So these members meet quarterly. They have specific goals and objectives that they're actively focused on to produce actionable outcomes. So as was mentioned, I kind of lead the conversation within our Financial Literacy Advisory Council. And that council the primary mission and focus is to support the development of a robust financial literacy agenda that can position the Comptroller of Maryland as a go-to statewide resource. And this includes identifying strategies and opportunities to educate disparate communities around financial literacy. Also developing new financial literacy resources to meet pressing community needs and promote the agency's efforts throughout the state. And finally, just to make the Office of the Comptroller a trusted hub and repository of financial literacy information and data. So we are really looking for ways to expand our reach and our capacity to do that. And, while we have a public engagement team, we really, value the partnerships that we can build with other stakeholders and experts. So the Advisory Council is an incredible group of experts with representation across the state of Maryland within multiple disciplines, such as banking and real estate and coaching, personal finance, higher education, entrepreneurship. There's so many, and they've made incredible impacts in their personal and professional work, and are dedicated to advancing strategic action that's necessary to improve financial education and wellness for Marylanders and the folks that they serve. So a little bit more about, kind of how the work groups function. They focus on several goals to kind of enhance our capacity at the Comptroller's office. So that can consist of sharing feedback on pressing issues that impact their communities. So a lot of the Financial Advisory Council members, as I mentioned, they represent multiple disciplines within the financial education space. And their work is incredibly diverse, and often they are connecting directly with the communities that they serve. And so it's easier to communicate and understand the greater need and the targeted areas of focus. In addition to that, advising the agency on its policy agenda and priorities. So as policy agendas and priorities are changing, are being brought to the forefront, the Advisory Council is so incredibly helpful in, sharing that direct feedback related to how these actions and these changes can impact not only their work, but the communities that they serve as well. And just a point about outreach to general outreach in terms of building the network. So in building that network, we are able to identify specific pathways to support the Comptroller of Maryland's initiatives, and community engagement efforts. So that community engagement piece is so incredibly important. And we want to ensure that we're sharing the information and resources from our office that makes in a way that is accessible, but also bridges that gap between government and community, which we often talk about. We also talk about how to best identify opportunities for collaboration between our office and other Marylanders in their networks. So as I mentioned previously, we're committed to engaging stakeholders in the community because honestly, it opens up opportunities for potential collaboration in areas of alignment. So when we are partnering with local and state elected officials or other community organizations, we are able to strengthen that network because it broadens our engagement in various affinity groups, whether that be faith-based organizations or higher education campus professionals, attending public events, as I mentioned earlier, at fairs and festivals or libraries libraries, county and statewide annual events that draw target audiences to where this information can be received. I also want to mention that the advisory groups are incredible, or the advisory council rather, is incredibly important because they serve as really our internal and external validators for the agency. So as I mentioned, knowing your audience, strategically engaging the community, developing meaningful partnerships, further contributes to a solid network of trusted people and spaces that strengthen really our credibility and also deliver tangible outcomes. So I always say it best, you want to have people within your sphere of influence or your networks that really can be validators for the work that you're doing. And people really need to see and have access and see that work in action to be able to, for folks to really tap into, the information that we're trying to deliver and share. And so that is just kind of a version of what we do in public engagement at the Comptroller's office. I just want to say that, it's been great listening to so many of the organizations and some of colleagues and folks that we partner with, the Cash Campaign, the Maryland Higher Education Commission, the Office of Financial Regulation. So many of you all and so many others are doing incredible work in this space. So I will say to the community, or rather the campus professionals in this space, definitely we welcome an opportunity for partnership and sharing the resources of our office, also in expanding community engagement as it relates to financial education and building capacity to increase awareness regarding this particular topic. It's encouraging, it really is truly encouraging to hear and see some of the feedback that I've heard today. So I will stop there, but I also want to extend just my congratulations to the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness on all the work that you all have done and what you're doing to advance financial education and wellness. And sincere appreciation truly for what you are doing here relative to this important work. And to all of the other folks that are on the call that are doing important work in Maryland, statewide and beyond, truly appreciate the work that you're doing. And I look forward to opportunities for the Comptroller's office to connect with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I was over here taking notes as usual while you were talking. And I just, it's really encouraging to hear so much about that emphasis on equity, access, inclusion, and creating trustworthy resources to meet people where they are and addressing those needs. So I also appreciate the approach to bring people together through these advisory councils where you have experts from throughout the state that are coming together to create something, again, that's trustworthy, accessible to Maryland's residents. And I think back to how the center started. So much of this began because we recognized that good work was happening on campuses throughout the state, but it was all happening in silos. And today, I think that we have all seen the power of partnerships and what happens when people step out of those silos, they get together, they combine their resources, but they continue to do that work. To that end, I want to thank the University System of Maryland because we had 100% participation from the University System of Maryland institutions, as well as the universities at Shady Grove, which is also a part of the system, but hosts many campuses in one location. We also had, of course, representation from MHEC, the Comptroller's Office, the Department of Labor, and I'm sure there are more state agencies and federal agencies that are represented. And the more people we have together in this collaborative space, the larger difference we can make. So Nicole, thank you so much. And thank you again to Comptroller Brooke Lierman for everything that you do and for your commitment to engaging the public in your efforts to build that hub, create those resources, and make them more accessible to Marylanders. And for the Comptroller's office specifically, I wanted to say, if you want to keep up with the Comptroller, take a look at the hashtag, Take a Look with Brooke, because she is out and about throughout the state of Maryland, showing us parts of the state that some of us have never seen. So take a look at that hashtag, take a look with Brooke, and you'll get a bird's eye view of what's happening in the state of Maryland and also the Office of the Comptroller's activities. So it looks like we're going to wrap up a little bit early today. As always, I thank you so much for joining us. Every year I review the guest list, and it's really great to see how many of you keep coming back year after year. We really appreciate you being with us on this journey to advance collegiate financial wellness. A lot of people ask after many of our programs and events, what can I do to get involved? Something very easy you can do to get involved is to engage with us on social media. We are at the MCCFW on Facebook, Instagram, X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, as well as YouTube. So you can like, subscribe, and stay in touch. You can also visit us online at mccfw.org/contact to join our mailing list, where we have a monthly newsletter that you'll receive that keeps you posted on what we're doing with students and families, campus-based professionals, and in the advocacy space. Thank you so much to those of you who have been engaged in the chat. I see Sue Rogan from the Cash Campaign of Maryland and Patrick Ziegler from Ernest, the longtime partner in financial wellness, and Taylor from the University of Maryland School of Social Work. You can also support the cause financially by making an individual donation or becoming a sponsor for one of our programs or general operations funds. You can find more options to support at mccfw.org/support. Today's program, I know the team at Adeo made it look easy, but it takes a lot of hands to pull off something like this. So I want to thank all of our speakers, our breakout session leaders for joining us today, and all of our attendees from here in Bowie, Maryland, to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Philadelphia, Texas, and as far up as Montreal. Thank you so much for spending the day with us. I'd also, again, like to thank CQ of Maryland for their financial support of today's event. I'd like to thank Meg Woodside for her strategic advice since the beginning of the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. I'd also like to thank Team McPhew. That includes our Director of Programs Administration, Melanie Mason, our Director of Campus and Community Partnerships, Jason Calhoun, one of our lead student loan strategy coaches, Tiffany Brown, as well as Ina Nalbani, Candace Ricks, and another one of our former coaches, Andrea Wise Smith. Thank you so much for the work that you've done to help increase access to life-changing benefits such as PSLF, as well as just improving the financial wellness of Marylanders through your work. I'd also like to thank Cheney Communications for their support on social media and comms. Sharice, thank you so much for the encouragement in the chat. Sonia from APGFCU, I really appreciate you all joining us and just your encouragement and support. I cannot put into words how much that means to me and how much that fuels us for the work of the center to continue. I'm going to give you back 9 minutes of your day. So thank you again so much for joining us. Please do keep in touch. And if we can be of support to you, whether that's through sharing content or just keeping the dialogue going, please do feel free to connect, reach out, and let's take this to even higher heights in the future. So as always, until next time, be well.